What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run for Your Sports YouTube channel, talking Tuesday's 8-game MLB slate. We got some early baseball going on right now. Just one game, Texas and Oakland, 11-2 in the third inning. We're hoping for some runs tonight. I got some good hitting weather across the slate. Enough of this dead baseball BS, Mr. Boynton. And I think we're going to see some big scores tonight, some home runs, some dongs, all that good stuff coming up on this MLB slate, we hope. Boynton, how you doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
I'm good. We're just talking a bit before the show about your Wolves last night. That was fun. 2-0 in the series, going back home. It's got to be exciting. Lots of 6:40 Eastern games today and a bunch of good ones. We got the O's Nats series. I'm from the DC area. That's always fun. So hopefully later in the week we get that on the slate. But we got 8 games tonight. It's kind of warming up everywhere. We got good weather for the most part, including a game here in Chicago. So should be a fun one.
Yeah, fun night at the Nuggets game last night. They were I would say it was maybe 2% Timberwolves in the crowd downtown Denver. But not a lot to cheer for the Nuggets fans. And by the end of the first quarter, you could identify exactly where every Timberwolves fan was sitting in the lower bowl, right? Because every time, plenty of times, Wolves are doing stuff, all the blocks and steals and dunks, everybody, jumping up out of their seats. And there was just one or two per row throughout the lower bowl. We were the only ones left by the end of the the whole stadium had vacated, but we had Anthony Edwards MVP chants going on. It was a pretty fun night. I still think it'd be more fun to have been at that game in Minneapolis, right? Partying with the fellow Wolves fans, but it was still a fun night. And
there is something about being at the road game when you just kick the shit out of the home team, though. There's something that feels really good about those.
I had to be careful not to start drinking too early because I get a little out of control, start taunting people. So I kept it PG-13 at the game. Didn't get in any trouble. We got home safe and got to stack some more cash. It's been stack cashing season with the Timberwolves, and we're staying on that train. 4.5-point favorites Friday at home. I was a season ticket holder for the Wolves for years. That is going to be an absolutely insane environment. And the defense that you saw last night from the Wolves, that's only going to be ramped up on Friday night. I promise you that much. I think the Wolves sweep this series and, make us some more money, hopefully. So, fun time there. Basketball talk for one night. I know you're mostly a college hoops guy, but the Wolves.
No, my guy, Nickeil Alexander-Walker's getting it done. Virginia Tech.
Oh, he has been incredible. Him and Jalen McDaniels just locking people down on the defensive end. And, the Wolves. That was without Rudy Gobert. It was the Wolves. I could keep going, but it was the Nuggets' least efficient offensive game in the last 6 years, including all regular season games. And that was without, one of the best defenders in NBA history, and Rudy Gobert, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. So, keep it going, Wolves. I'll be riding that train until the better end. Hopefully it ends in a Wolves victory. All right, enough basketball talk. Let's get into this baseball slate. First game we'll talk about, like you mentioned, there are a bunch of early games. I saw someone asking about the Turbo slate. I actually didn't look at it enough to do on a full baseball slate. Do you have any takes from – it is a decent amount of games.
Yeah.
I actually looked at playing it, but the contests were so small that I just moved on to the main slate. But any takes for the Turbo slate for the people before we get into it?
Yeah, I popped it in chat. I'm playing Eflin, and then I stacked Rays against Soroka. He kind of got us last time, but he's not going to continue to do that. Rays bats are waking up a bit. They just got Josh Lowe back. So I like Rays. Eflin, I don't mind Sandoval or Sanchez as SP2 there.
All right, there we go. Turbo slate, nice and easy. First game on the main slate, though, Houston and the New York Yankees. 8.5 total in this one. It's going to be a theme, higher totals. We do have good hitting weather in every game. I think at least like decent hitting weather in some of these games. Really good. We'll talk about Wrigley Field, obviously, coming up here. Got Coors Field. Warmer weathers across the country. You do love to see it. Luis Gil pitching for the New York Yankees, the guy I was very high on coming into the season. He certainly delivered on that promise for the most part. The overall results have been good. The strikeouts have been there. He has walked a lot of dudes, which did lead me to actually stacking against him, I think, for the first time all season with the Baltimore Orioles back on May 1st. Of course, he's been like the one right-handed pitcher to kind of shut that team down. And like I've talked about with Luis Gil, I do think he's just kind of capable of that against any team. Any pitcher with a fastball that can miss bats in the zone, I think if they can throw strikes with that pitch, they can, come up with good results out of nowhere. So I don't want to say he can't do it against the Houston Astros, but I'm probably not paying to find out. Luis Gil, 8,300 on DraftKings, so we don't really get a discount on the price or the ownership. I mean, Sabres got him projected at 23% against the Astros. It is a really tough pitching slate, in my opinion. It's a very tight pool for me tonight, but I still don't really want to play Luis Gil at that price point and ownership combination, right? That's kind of the two things, obviously, that you're looking at. Even though I do think the upside is there, I just am still scared of this lineup, particularly that top 5 or 6. I mean, even Singleton has been tearing the cover off the ball recently. So I'm kind of off of Gil here. I don't mind the Astros, honestly, as a contrarian stack. And then I do really like the Yankees side of this game against Justin Verlander. I know he's been pretty solid to start the season. Obviously, he missed the first portion of the season. Has pitched the last 3 games. And, the kind of the surface metrics have been fine. He's got a low ERA and all that. But I'm not really convinced on Verlander, and I think regression's coming for him. This Yankees team is patient. They've got power. It's good hitting weather in Yankee Stadium, obviously a good park for home runs in general. And I like the Yankees side of this one. I think they'll be rather contrarian tonight. So this is going to be a theme, but give me the bats on both sides of this game.
Yeah, interesting game to start us off here. Gil, I've been trying to make him work. He's pitched really well the last couple outings. You hit the nail on the head with the walks. They had that, it's like 6 or 7 walk game against Toronto. Him dialing in the walks is going to be the key because his stuff is good enough to miss bats. If he doesn't give out free passes, he's going to be just fine. Like you said, though, about as tough of a matchup as it gets for a guy who sometimes gets a little wild. Houston's not going to give you anything. They'll take their walks. So tough spot here. I was actually hoping to play him if he was going to be low owned, but it looks like he's going to be owned here.
That's basically what I was saying. It's like I would have played him at this price at low ownership, or I would have played him at this ownership at a low price. But the combo of the two has me not that interested.
Yeah, so I'm going to have maybe some, in my 20 lineups. Houston's second lowest strikeout rate against righties. That's no surprise. It just kind of seems like a boom bust option. His K prop isn't that great. It's actually lower than the Mets starter tonight. So not a ton of interest there. I'm with you on the Yankees bats with Verlander. Just a guy who's been like super lucky so far. Every time he's been pitching, it's like he's Houdiniing like almost every inning, it feels like. And the underlying metrics kind of bear that out. 19% strikeout rate is a low for him. Career high, 10.3% walk rate. So, he's playing more on the edges. 93% strand rate so far. So all that adds up to a 208 ERA, but a 4.8 xFIP, 4.7 Sierra. Both of those are third worst on the entire slate, DC, behind Dakota Hudson and Vasquez, the two guys that we're going to be stacking up against anyways. Yeah. So he's the third worst on the slate in both of those advanced metrics. So sign me up for Yankees. They've been red hot against right-handed pitching just in general. second highest weighted runs created plus, and second highest ISO over the last month against righties. So it's a hot lineup. They're a bit expensive, but no one wants to click them against Verlander. It kind of seems like a spot that you and I try to probably play more than others, stack against guys like this, who consistently outperform their advanced stuff. But, I'm willing to take a shot on the Yankees bats at home in Yankee Stadium. And on top of that, the Houston bullpen hasn't been as good this year as they have the last couple. So I'm in on Yankees bats. I'll have a little bit of pitcher. I think Houston is interesting. I'm just kind of scared of the Yankees bullpen in general. And at these price tags on the Houston bats, I think I'd rather play the Yankees and a couple other stacks on this slate.
Yeah, I am in on the Yankees here. They are going to be low owned. They are expensive. Just to play devil's advocate, including against myself, I do think Verlander, there's a reason he's still pitching at 40 years old. He is probably a pitcher who's going to outperform his metrics most of the time. But nevertheless, I still do weigh, what the metrics say over what the results have been through 3 starts. So in on the Yankees at low ownership, I'll try to sprinkle in some Astros too, playing just 5 main lineup. So won't be able to get to everybody, but I do like both sides of this game. I do think we're going to see runs in this game, and frankly, most of them. We'll move to the next game on the slate, though, Boston and the Atlanta Braves. This one at 7:20 Eastern time. Reynaldo Lopez pitching for the Braves. I finally bought in last start, and he wasn't bad, 14.5 points in Seattle, but it was his worst start of the year. Still struck out 7 over 5 innings, so not a bad start at all. I kind of like him here. 9,700 still feels like a lot. He's like, what is he, like 10.4K on FanDuel? Just crazy for Reynaldo Lopez. I never would have thought he would get up that high in terms of, the pricing. But it's been earned based on the results that he's been able to deliver. The under-the-hood stuff looks pretty good, honestly, to me, for Reynaldo Lopez. Pitches in Atlanta here at home. It will be warm, 85 degrees, humid. Wind's blowing in a little bit, and so far this park has kind of played somewhat pitcher friendly. Just with the winds have been blowing a lot, they've had a big impact. So I don't mind Lopez. I've got him a lot below Yoshi Yamamoto, who we'll talk about in the last game of the night. I think it's kind of impossible not to mention his name until then. So I got to bring him up. So it's kind of hard to play both, but I don't mind Lopez. I do think he'll pitch decently well here. This Red Sox lineup, somewhat scary at the top, but it really does fall off in a hurry after that. So, yeah, I do expect a decent performance from Lopez. He will go opposite Cutter Crawford, who has been awesome this year on the young season. Kind of a theme for that Red Sox starting rotation in general. I'm kind of, again, I think Lopez is fine. I do think you could go to either offense here. Obviously, the Braves, team that I stack often. I don't think I'll be too heavy on them today. There are other offenses I like better, and this game will be one that I'm a little bit lower on overall. But that said, I don't think it's a bad game if you're on the Braves. I wouldn't really want to talk you off of that. Your thoughts here, Steve, on Braves and Red Sox?
Yeah, it feels weird to be on a show with you and not have Braves as like a top thing on the playbook. But yeah, I've been playing Crawford a lot. I believe in the stuff. And the Braves just have not been hitting and the prices have not moved. It's just really tough to click right now. The wind's blowing in, like you said. I actually added Lopez to the pool, kind of more of a context of the slate play for me.
Yeah.
There just aren't that many guys that I even want to click, right? So if I'm playing 20 lineups, just kind of including him as kind of a process of elimination of all the other guys that I don't want to play, right?
That's the same type of play he is for me. There's just not very many guys I'm willing to play. He is one that I am willing to put in my lineups.
Yeah, and like you said, the current version of the Boston lineup's a bit watered down. They're up to 6th in strikeout rate, even though they do have the pop against righties. You do get the elevated strikeout rate here. So Lopez is in the pool for me. Actually, no Braves bats for me on this site. I'm just spending up elsewhere. Sabre does have them with a 5 implied team total. Just at these price tags, I'm really bought into Crawford. I think he's a good pitcher, and I'm not going to be picking on him in this spot. If he wasn't up against the Braves, I'd probably honestly be playing him on this slate. So no Braves bats for me, no Boston bats for me, and I'm going to play some Lopez in this spot.
Makes sense. Pretty much the same take through these first 2 games. Let's get to the third game on the slate. It is San Diego and the Chicago Cubs. 9 total in this one. I think this is the best hitting weather we've had in Wrigley all season, or we're very close to it, if not the number one, certainly right up there in the top 3. 70 degrees, humid, winds blowing out. Steve's obviously in the Wrigley or in the Chicago area. I know you're going to this game as well, so you'll be hoping for some home runs here, I'm guessing. And yeah, it looks like a pretty awesome spot for the Cubs against Randy Vasquez, who I don't think is any good. Doesn't have a huge sample of major league innings to look to, but the sample you do have, he's been absolutely shellacked, especially by a left-handed bat. A lot of home runs, can't strike anybody out. Ball should be flying in Wrigley. So I am absolutely in on the Cubs. They also get Cody Bellinger back, arguably their best overall hitter. Swing from the left side. He'll be in the 3-hole tonight, lengthening that lineup out. I think you could play 1 through 9, honestly, in the Cubs lineup today. Tell me if you disagree with that, but I think all these guys are in play. And then Shota Imanaga has been absolutely lights out for the Cubs. ERA below 1 through, at this point, 34 and 2/3 innings pitched. Only 4 walks on the season. Strikeout rate is pretty solid. I don't think he is got to choose my words carefully because I do think he's a very good pitcher, right? For sure. I bet on this guy to win the NL Rookie of the Year. I'm a believer, just not to the extent that he's shown so far this year, where he's 5-0 with a 0.78 ERA. He is a fly ball type of pitcher for the most part, which I think could potentially bring him problems here. I do think he's going to get a reasonable amount of ownership, which I totally get. Actually, seeing him, Sabres got him at 8%, so I don't mind him at that number. Yeah. I bet it'll be higher. Steven brings up Bill Miller umpiring for the Cubs and San Diego, obviously one of the, in my opinion, the number 1 pitchers umpire in baseball if you go back the last few years. So, yeah, that's definitely a note in Imanaga's favor. And I might mix him in on 1 or 2 teams, but it is the Cubs bats that really stand out. And I do think if you want to get contrarian, some of this right-handed power for the Padres, guys like Tatis, Machado, I do think are reasonable plays. I don't want to stack against Imanaga. He just is not the type of pitcher that seems like he's going to get blown up often, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him give up a home run or 2 in this environment against some of that right-handed power. Where do you stand, Steve, on Cubs and Padres?
Yeah, heading up to Wrigley right after the show here, and I'll try to do lineups. Awesome day for baseball. Very humid for early May here in Chicago, like you mentioned. I think pretty much the only negative is the umpire, right, for the Cubs bats. Great matchup here. Winds blowing out to center. Vasquez, like a longtime Yankees minor leaguer guy, made a couple starts last year. He just doesn't miss any bats. 13% strikeout rate, career 10% walk rate, 5.3 xFIP, fly ball pitcher in a win game. It just all lines up. They get Bellinger back, like you said. We actually just got the lineup confirmed while we were on the show. He is hitting 3rd tonight. Yeah. So Bellinger's in there. He's under 5K on DraftKings. And this lineup, DC, is pretty cheap overall. Like if you look at we got nobody above 5K, the cheap catcher in there, Amaya. So I think that the Cubs are going to work well if you want to get up to Yamamoto, as a 5-man. So Cubs fit well there. And then, on the other side, Imanaga's just been awesome. 35 strikeouts in 32 innings. You mentioned the ERA. The estimators are all around 3. So, some regressions on the way, but, I think he'll be pretty low owned here, probably under 15%, I think. I'll probably play about that in my 20 lineups. I can see Paz to where he beats Yamamoto here, every now and then. So Padres haven't been great against lefties, 23rd in weighted runs created plus in the split over last month. It's all systems go here on the Cubs. Their team total has been rising all day. We had some storms here earlier, but the sun is out now. We're good to go. I'll have a bunch of Cubs on this slate.
Yeah, and to further the point with Imanaga, for people that are on him, I would say his best attribute, he's obviously a very good pitcher in multiple ways, is his command. He can really put his pitches kind of where he wants to put them, and that he could really benefit from Bill Miller, right? If he starts getting that zone expanded, and some of these pitchers umpires, they're kind of the throwbacks where if you're able to locate early, they'll start to give you an inch or two more on the corners, on the edges. And I could see Imanaga doing it again. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I do think you can, like I said, play some of that power for the Padres if you're inclined to do that. But I do think Imanaga, I'm gonna have to bump him above Ronaldo Lopez with the Bill Miller news here, and I just have way more faith in Imanaga long term.
Yeah. If you like pitching, watching him is fun because he plays the fastball up and the splitter down, and it's tough to keep track of as a hitter. His splitter's really nasty. So,
and I don't know if the ownership will hold true, but right now, at least SaberSim does have Ronaldo Lopez at double the ownership of Imanaga. That seems a little silly for me, given
I think it's the K prop. So I'm seeing Imanaga's K prop at 4.5. I actually want to bet that over right now.
Yeah, where's that? give me the over on 4.5 there.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That would be why the ownership is low. But Bill Miller, Imanaga, even with some winds blowing out, I mean, it's not like it's extreme. We'll get to the summer sometimes where it's 90 degrees and 20 mile per hour winds. It's not that type of situation. So, yeah, maybe getting a little bit higher on Imanaga, given the more information that we get. All right, let's get to Milwaukee and Kansas City. Another good hitting environment in this one. Total sitting at 9, 75 degrees, 10 mile per hour winds out to left center field in Kauffman Stadium. We mention it often on this show, Steve. This is a tough park for home runs, but pretty good, honestly, for everything else. And I think this will play, in general, pretty hitter-friendly today. We do have Seth Lugo pitching for the Royals. Another one who, on the surface, he's been ridiculously good, including 30-plus fantasy point outings in each of his last 2. I think you're buying into Lugo a little bit more than I am, but it could perhaps be the price too, because he is sitting at 7,200, which is a really, really low price point for someone who has delivered the results that Lugo has. So I do get it against this Brewers team that they're kind of fading back a little bit at this point. They started off the year very hot, missing Christian Yelich still. He should be back soon, shortly as well, but not in there tonight. So I get it with Lugo. There's another pitcher there in the 7K range I know you're on as well. We'll talk about who I do like quite a bit better. Makes it a little tough for me to click on Lugo, but I do understand it. And then I really, really like the Royals offense here against Colin Rea, another pitcher who I do think is pitching very far over his head early on this season. I'm still not at all a believer in him. And was doing some stolen base digging, some research, some spreadsheet creating today. Rea has actually allowed the most stolen bases per stolen base opportunity of any pitcher over the last 3 or 4 years, or very, very close to up there at the very, very top of the list. So you can absolutely run on Colin Rea, which I think is a nice bump to some of these Royals bats, particularly Garcia and Bobby Witt at the top. It also gives up home runs, particularly to lefties. So Pasquantino, Michael Massey, I think look good in that capacity. And yeah, I'm in on this Royals offense. I don't know how long they can be. I can pull up that ownership there, but regardless, I think they're putting up some runs tonight, doing some damage. Looks like they're going to be pretty heavily owned against Camporeale, which I totally get. But I'm in on the Royals. Not so much Milwaukee, but also probably not playing a ton of Lugo. I know you like Lugo a little bit. Over to you, Steve, for Royals and Brewers.
Yeah, for Lugo, it's more the price play. You know, I kind of like him. I liked him coming into the season as a guy to play in certain matchups at certain prices. I don't think he's some crazy good arm or anything, but at 7,200 on a slate without much under Ober, and we'll talk about Kyle Harrison later, who's going to be pretty owned in the Coors game. I like Lugo for sure over Kyle Harrison here. Coming off of 2 awesome starts and 3 really good ones his last 4, with the lone bad one being against Baltimore, which we talked about earlier. Righties against Baltimore are going to be, in trouble pretty much all season. So, I don't really care that much that he had a dud in that outing. The 9 and 8 strikeouts in his last 2 starts is the encouraging thing for me. That's kind of what was lacking early on in the season. His first few starts is the strikeouts. So, if he's going to add those, I like him. He's up against a team that does have pop, but also strikes out a bunch, 8th in strikeout rate over the last couple weeks. So at 7,200, I think he's got to be in the pool if you're playing multiple lineups. He's 9,700 on FanDuel. So definitely more of a DK play here at the price tag. And then I'm with you on the KC bats. Their team total on Sabres up at 5.1, which is higher than the Braves today. It is basically the same as the Cubs and higher than the Dodgers. So there's a reason that they're going to be popular. They are dirt cheap outside of Witt, Vinny, and Perez here. Their entire, 5 through 9 or 3,500 or less. They just kind of fit lineups well. Even if you don't want to use them as a 5-man, you can play Massey, Melendez, Massey, Isbell, with a good 5-man with Yamamoto on this slate, which I think how I'm going to be using them here. I didn't know the steal thing with Rhea. That's interesting, especially for a team like this who does like to run. So I actually just bumped up Bobby Witt a bit, and I'm going to be prioritizing him. If I'm playing a KC 5-man, it's got to come with him. So, I'm in on Royals here. I'm in on some Lugo, probably not on a main lineup, but I have plenty of him in my 20.
Yeah, Rhea, very easy to run on. William Contreras catching tonight. Not a great defensive catcher either. I do think these Royals are going to be off to the races if they get a chance against Lugo, against Rhea, which frankly you would expect them to. I wish they had a little more speed, but yeah, Garcia, Witt at the top of the lineup. I think those guys make for a pretty fun, kind of little 2-man, but yeah, Pasquantino, Perez, Massey, yeah, and then the cheap guys at the bottom. So very much in on the Royals tonight. One of my favorite stacks, no question about it. We're halfway through the slate. Appreciate all you guys watching. All we ask is you hit the like button. It does help us bring you guys these free shows 6 days a week here on the MLB side, but plenty of free shows on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel for all sports. So hit that like button if you haven't yet done so. We do appreciate it. And if you do want to join us over at Run Pure Sports, get all our core plays, get the write-ups, the playbook, my cheat sheet every day, and everything you need for every DFS sport, you can use promo code DC15 for 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. All right, let's get to the second half of this slate. First game we'll talk about Minnesota Twins, Seattle Mariners. Bailey Ober pitching for the Twins here. 7,600. I still think he is just underpriced. He had that horrible first outing against the Royals back on March 31st. -17 DraftKings points, only went an inning in the third. Honestly, I just don't really care about that outing anymore, given that he's been good, solid to good for 5 straight starts. He did have a little bit of a hiccup against the White Sox last time out, but he's a pitcher I definitely believe in long term, and definitely believe in him on this slate, especially at this price point on a slate where we don't really like the pitching in general. He'll go against Emerson Hancock and the Seattle Mariners on the other side. Hancock's been okay. That Seattle staff in general has just been on fire this year. Hancock, I don't think he's long for the rotation. I think this could be his last start. Brian Wu coming back for the Mariners. I believe he'll pitch this weekend. But probably one last go-around for Hancock here. I like the Twins bats a little bit. And then I do really like Bailey Ober, my second favorite pitcher on the slate overall, kind of point per dollar wise. We saw Simeon Woods Richardson pitch a gem yesterday against Seattle. I kind of consider Woods Richardson like a poor man's version of Ober, honestly. Kind of a fastball that plays up with some nice ride to it, can miss bats. And, if he's able to strike out 8, Ober's certainly capable of doing that and even more, certainly. So I do think we're going to see heavy ownership on Bailey Ober, potentially the highest owned pitcher on the slate. I think it's going to be close between him and Yamamoto. But at 7,600 against this Mariners team, I'm in on Bailey Ober. A pretty safe pitcher in general, I think, despite that horrible first outing he had. And I think he's got more upside maybe than people realize against this Mariners strikeout heavy team. So sign me up for some Bailey Ober. Not going to play many Mariners, and then I'll probably mix in the Twins, but they didn't make the top of my list today. Where do you stand on Twins and Mariners, Steve?
Yeah, gotta love Ober here. He'll probably be on my single entry team tonight. We saw it just last night. I played Seattle. They've got pop, but they are just a swing happy team. They chase outside the zone. Pretty much the whole lineup does. We saw it against Woods Richardson, carved him up for a big score. Ober's been good, like you said, except for the White Sox start and that first start of the year. The weather in Minnesota tonight compared to everywhere else on the slate, I think is fine for him too. Yeah. And then on the other side, I don't mind Twins bats. You always have to be careful with the pinch hit risk with this lineup, which is what it just makes him so frustrating to use. But the Seattle starter Hancock doesn't miss too many bats, gives up power. And the Twins, as everyone knows, they've been hot, second in weighted runs created plus, third in ISO over the last 2 weeks. I probably won't 5-man them just because I'm usually terrified to 5-man them because of the pinch hit risk. But the prices have come down a bit because of that. We see Jeffers is actually the highest price guy there in the 3-hole at 4,600. So, yeah, I'm going to be including Twins for my secondary stacks here. Prioritizing the lefties, I really like Castro at 3,800. He's got some speed to him as well. Hitting in the 7-hole, he gives you shortstop eligibility on a slate that's decently tough at short outside of the spends. So give me a ton of Ober. Give me Twins secondary stacks. I'll probably X like Santana, Miranda, guys like that. But yeah, don't love the Twins, but we'll be including them here.
Yeah, similar approach there. Mariners 2 lefties in the pen. One, Saucedo has pitched 2 of the last 3 days, and then the other, Gabe Spear, hasn't pitched in 3 days. So I would expect to see him in this game, but yeah, I don't think it's a guarantee the Twins lefties come out of this game, but it is certainly a risk, and I'm with you. When there's plenty of offense to choose from, especially on this slate, I do tend to shy away from it at least a little bit. So that's Seattle and the Minnesota Twins. Let's get to another game that I think could have some offense and maybe a little sneaky here. St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Mets. Jose Buto and Miles Michaelis pitching. Another game that it's not a great hitting stadium in general in St. Louis and Busch Stadium, but very nice hitting conditions today. 80 degrees, winds blowing out to center field, and Miles Michaelis always going to be a pitcher, Steve. For as long as he's around, I'm going to be stacking against this guy. Hasn't been, I mean, he's been bad. Not horrible so far, but I really only think he can get worse, like just as a general trend. Obviously, I think he's kind of on his last legs. Gives up a ton of contact, obviously. And this Mets team is starting to hit for a little bit more power. Nemo's swinging the bat well. Lindor's coming around. We know what Alonso can do. DJ Stewart's got some power. They got JD Martinez in the lineup. Even guys like Brett Beatty down in the 7-hole are cheap at 2,900. So, yeah, I'm in on this Mets squad. Wouldn't be surprised to see them do some damage here. I know I think you like Jose Buto a little bit. I get it. Kind of surprised the Mets are underdogs in this game, honestly. Might have to take that little plus money on the Mets money line because I think Buto is a lot better than Michaelis. And honestly, I'd take this Mets lineup over the Cardinals lineup as well. So might be taking the dog here in terms of betting. I do like the Mets bats better than I like the Cardinals. And Buto, I think, is fine. It's just, I'm not playing 150 today. So, you don't need as many pitchers in the pool. And I just can't play him over Bailey Ober on this slate. So I don't know if I'll get there. I do understand it. He has been pretty impressive so far this year. But where do you stand, Steve? Cardinals and Mets? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Buto's more of a multi-lineup play.
Yeah.
I'm not clicking him over Ober from hand building. I put in the playbook like him and Heel are priced pretty closely. I think they're pretty opposite plays, right?
Yes.
I think Buto's more of a floor play against a really bad offense. Man, the Cardinals
100% agree with this take. Yep.
Yeah, Cardinals have just been horrendous, man. Like pretty much the whole year, and the last kind of week straight, it feels like they've been chalk. It's kind of been fun to be playing slates while everyone's trying to play Cardinals, and you're not. I actually did take the Mets money line earlier today. Couldn't believe they were plus money with Michaelis going. I don't mind the Mets. I actually played some of them last night. They've been swinging it against right-handed pitching. They're not striking out at all, and they are 6th in weighted runs created plus in the split over the last month. The issue with the Mets right now has pretty much been Pete Alonso. He's been really bad, especially lately. Was kind of hoped that DK would drop his price a bit. He's been especially bad on the road too. At home, he's got like an 850 OPS, 566.
I like this matchup for him though. Meatballs from Michaelis. It seems like a good spot for Alonso to launch one.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say they gave him the day off yesterday. Maybe cleared his head, comes back here. So yeah, I'm in on the Mets. They have the cheap catcher that helps out with the full stack. If you want to pay up, I will say the guy who, man, every time I play him, he just does nothing. Is Brett Beatty. I had higher hopes for this guy as a hitter. He's just not really getting it done. So with him and Simple Jack hitting 8th, the back half of the lineup isn't great, but getting JD Martinez in there, maybe he helps get the back half of the lineup going a bit. DJ Stewart has been really good in the middle of the order, and they haven't raised his price at all. He's still at 3,100 on DK. He had a big RBI double last night. So yeah, I'm on Mets. I'm on some Buto here. Just kind of the same play for me, or the same reasoning for including him as I'm including Lopez. It's just like, I don't love a ton of arms, and he's just seems like a guy that should be in the pool. He's not a guy that I'm going to jam every start, especially at 8K, but context of the slate, I'm going to be playing some of him. Honestly, I'll play almost any pitcher against the Cardinals right now.
Yeah. That makes sense. And Buto's been better than, just any pitcher. So I get it from that perspective. Jeff McNeil, by the way, you call him Simple Jack. This dude needs to be Old Yeller. Take him back behind the barn. Get him off the team. I can't stand watching that guy play. He's complaining about every little tiny thing that happens.
The Jeff is so good, though. The Simple Jack is so good.
Yeah. I was having a Twitter conversation. He has like the mentality of a superstar and the skill of the 26th man on the roster. So, yeah, get McNeil off this team, and I'll feel better, a little bit better about the Mets. Maybe they could take Brett Beatty with him down to the minor leagues. But yeah, the top half of that Mets lineup, I do think can do some damage.
Yeah.
I do think the Mets guys make some sense as one-offs too, because Michaelis just doesn't walk anybody. He just refuses, just pumps strikes into the zone that are extremely hittable. But I do prefer to stack against pitchers who can give you some free passes and turn over the lineup a little bit more than Michaelis typically does. That's the Mets and the Cardinals. Let's get to the last two games on the slate. I think arguably the two most important games on the slate, or whatever you want to call it, two most interesting games, two most impactful games. First one, San Francisco and the Colorado Rockies. Highest total of the day in this one, sitting at 10.5 runs. Obviously, Coors Field plays a big part in that. Dakota Hudson pitching for the Rockies, who is not any good. Sitting at a 6 ERA on the season. It's actually an ERA closer to 9 in his 3 home starts. Not great weather for hitting here in Colorado. It's pretty cool and just ferocious winds for these last couple days. Looks like it's going to be 25-mile-per winds blowing across the field from left to right, which has me a little hesitant on these Rockies bats against Kyle Harrison, who I think you're going to be a little bit higher on the Rockies than I am. Harrison has some extreme home road splits, which makes sense when you realize how he pitches. He's a guy who really relies on the fastball from the left side. He gives up a ton of fly balls. But I'm just worried these right-handed bats for the Rockies, those fly balls are just going to be hanging up, maybe turn into some easy outs in that big outfield. So I'm less in on the Rockies. I still think they're a fine play against Harrison. I don't really want to play Harrison himself in Coors Field, honestly. So I'm with you on that part of it. I think he's going to get some ownership at 6,400. I won't be going there. No interest in Hudson. And I do really like the Giants team. I'm not sure I like them more than the field will. I'm not, going all in or anything. You're going to see, I assume, some pretty big ownership on these Giants bats. I get it. It's Coors Field. It's freaking Dakota Hudson. But I do think that we're going to see offense from a number of teams, a number of spots this slate. So I don't think you have to eat the Giants chalk. I think even if they score 8 or 9 or 10 runs, there could easily be a couple of teams that outperform them, runs scored or fantasy wise. So I will certainly mix in the Giants, probably be under the field. But I'll throw it to you, Steve. Where do you stand on the Giants and the Rockies here in Coors Field?
Yeah, I'll start with the Rockies. We stacked Boston in that last Kyle Harrison start. His home road splits, like you mentioned, have just been crazy. Extreme fly ball guy, basically a 2-pitch pitcher. He profiles perfectly for the home park in San Fran. Every time he leaves that park, he's going to have trouble with bombs. I don't know if I want to, full stack the Rockies, but maybe hunting some power there. The wind, like you said, not ideal. But man, Sabres got Kyle Harrison almost 30% owned in Coors because of that price tag. So I think that playing the Rockies here is a really nice way to go. Their team total is almost 5 here. It's approaching Dodgers team total. It's approaching the Braves team total. And Sabres got them all under 5% owned on an 8-game slate in Coors against a pitcher who has a career 6 expected ERA outside of San Francisco. It is the Rockies bats. They've failed plenty of times at Coors this season. But they've shown a little bit of life against lefties lately. I think my favorites are Doyle, Tovar, Diaz, and then the guy they just called up, Jordan Beck, I think are my 4 favorites there on the Rockies. On the Giants side, I think the way I'm going to play it is I'm not sure you mentioned the change in the pinch hit risk. We talked about it a couple weeks ago with the Giants. without Kapler there, they're not pinch hitting as much, which is huge. Obviously, Bob Melvin, more of an old school guy.
Yeah.
Basically, their only pinch hit / platoon guy is Lamont Wade, who I think is going to be the highest owned guy on the slate. So the way that I'm playing the Giants is I'm Xing out Wade. The good thing is we just got the lineup. He's first base only, and so is Wilmer Flores, and they're both starting. So I'm going to be playing some Wilmer Flores instead of Wade. Hopefully we get that early lefty reliever. The second that happens, Wade is coming out for Austin Slater. It happens every single game. So I think Wade's going to be the highest owned bat on the entire slate. He's hitting third at 4K at Coors. So that's kind of how I'm approaching San Fran here to try to get different. I really like Yaz in the back half of the lineup. He's shown some life of late. They've got the catcher back. Blake Sabol is starting in the 8 hole. I think he's only played a game or two this season. So it's a great spot. Can't argue with that. I will be playing some. I'm going to try to be strategic in how I play the Giants. And I think getting away from Wade is a way to do that, because I think most 5-mans will just have him in, especially ones that use an optimizer, because he just projects so well.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Noah Moon, this guy's been coming at me all day on Twitter. Sorry that I bet on the Wolves 6 straight games and won a mid-sized sedan worthy of money. And you know what? I'm going to correct you here. I don't think the Wolves are going to sweep the Nuggets. I know they're going to sweep the Nuggets. And with that, Noah Moon, you're out of here. You're in timeout. See you later, Noah Moon. All right, let's get to the last game of the slate. Listen, you can troll me on one platform or the other, Steve. You do it all day on Twitter, and then you jump in here on the show. I've never seen you in this baseball show before. I'm trying to jump in here, talk basketball while we're talking baseball.
I have no issue with it.
Timeout for Noah Moon. Last game on the slate: Miami and the LA Dodgers. Yoshi Yamamoto on the hill for the LA Dodgers. Been amazing. He had that first kind of rough start in South Korea. We've talked about it on the show. You just kind of disregarded it at this point. He's been so good since then. It's interesting. He actually hasn't had like the, truly monster slate breaking game. He hasn't scored more than 30 fantasy points yet, but dude is, in my opinion, as legit as they come. Those games are coming. Could easily be here against the Marlins. And given some of the, we should mention, or I should mention, part of the reason he didn't get there was because he was kind of limited in the pitch count early on. But up to, regular than 90s, he's thrown 90 plus pitches in 4 straight games. Matchups haven't been that great. This is, in my opinion, the best matchup that he's had pitching at home here against the Marlins. And on a slate where I don't love pitching, Steve, I mean, I know he's going to be popular, and I do think he's definitely going to be more popular than the Sabre projection, which has him at 31%. I mean, there's no way, right? I don't think that he comes in 31% owned, but I mean, if he does, like that, to me is a pretty egregious number, to the point where, I'm considering just kind of locking in Yamamoto and rolling with it. I just think he's by far the best play on the slate, safety-wise, and I would say ceiling-wise, even though he hasn't quite shown that yet. So, yeah, I couldn't really be more in on Yamamoto than I am. Hopefully he stays somewhat low-owned. He's going to obviously have ownership, but I think it should be higher than it is. I think it should be, 50 or 60%, and I don't think it's going to quite get there. So, in on Yamamoto. I'm not playing Marlins. Also, I should mention, Marlins traded Luis Arraez, who I know isn't like a big power hitter or anything. He is annoying as fuck to go against for your pitcher, right?
The worst is when he starts out with an 11 pitch at bat to start.
That's what I'm saying. He takes 11 pitches. He's like fouling balls off. He like draws a 3-2 walk. 12 pitches into the count.
You're pulling your hair out at 6 minutes into the game.
Your pitcher has lost like 12% of their pitches for the game, and they're like negative whatever it is, 0.75 from a
He hits a
single.
14 bouncer through the middle.
Yeah, it's tilting, but he's gone. He's off the team, and he was the most annoying. He's like one of the most annoying guys to face. Like the way I would put it is like, which pitcher would you would like if you had a lineup of 9 Luis Arises, I wouldn't play like any pitcher against that lineup, right? His like 6% strikeout rate and 340 batting average. So yeah, getting him off the team is a big boost to opposing pitchers. And yeah, in on Yamamoto, as I mentioned a few times now. And then the Dodgers, man, I keep mentioning Shohei Ohtani on the slate or on the show. Dude's just locked in right now. And I mean, you just play this guy, right? I mean, he's just absolutely incredible. Edward Cabrera pitching for the Miami Marlins. He's not a bad pitcher. He does have some talent, but he is a pitcher that I think you want to stack against. Walks a lot of dudes, gives up some steals, can give up some power, has given up a home run in each of the last 2 games. And yeah, the Dodgers, I think they might go a tiny bit overlooked in this game. I'm not 100% sure on that, but Ohtani's at the very, very top of my list hitting-wise. I like the rest of the Dodgers too. And then Yamamoto, I'm expecting a big game out of him. So pretty important last game of the slate. Where do you stand, Steve? Miami and the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, we're all over the Dodgers last night in a great spot. This is a different type of spot, right? You know, you got a power pitcher who can get wild. We just saw it in Cabrera's last start, struck out a ton of guys, but walked a couple, gave up a 3-run bomb to I don't remember who it was, but yeah, no, this is a good spot for the Dodgers here. Ohtani's been unreal, like him only focusing on hitting. I'm not sure if you saw the home run that he hit last night with sound on. It sounded like a cannon going off. It was unbelievable. He's just.
I didn't do much. I didn't do much preseason baseball content, but I did go on one pod with my guy Bubba, and we were talking about the highest upside picks in like each round of the fantasy draft. And Ohtani was mine in the first round. I was like, who knows what this guy could do now that he's focused on hitting? I mean, the numbers I gave out, he laughed at me. We're like, who knows, like 80 home runs and 50 steals. I mean, he's the only one that was ever able to both hit and pitch. And now he's only got to do one. He gets off the most trash organization in the Angels to one of the smartest in the Dodgers, who knows? They could be helping him too. If you look at his like StatCast page, he's literally like 100 percentile in every single stat. It's absolutely wild what Ohtani is doing. Jason Gordon asked, is Ohtani a lock from here on out? I mean, I wouldn't go that far. No hitter's ever a lock, but you want to play a lot of Ohtani until further notice is what I would say.
Yeah, so what I've been doing over the last, 2 weeks is Sabres got their projections in there. Captain does projections. I've just been bumping him up like way past what we have because even the projections are lower than his average per game, so far. So, I mean, he's averaging 13 fantasy points per game as a hitter. That's better than Acuna was last season. We talked about Ellie De La Cruz on the show last week, kind of doing the same thing in a different way. Ohtani, amazing play. He's expensive. I like the Dodgers again here, especially if this Sabre ownership is correct. I don't love them as much. Yesterday, I liked them more because, the one lefty reliever that Miami uses had just thrown 22, 25 pitches on Sunday. He didn't go yesterday. So I think Outman and Lux are less good plays than they were yesterday because I think that they are going to see that lefty at some point in this game. So I did dock both Outman and Lux, which is kind of change. It just changes the way that you can stack the Dodgers, right? Like you probably can't play Yamamoto with them if you're not using Lux and Outman. So yeah, I mean, I was playing around with some Ober, Lugo, Dodgers. I think that's fine, stuff like that. But yeah, the top 6 of this lineup. Teoscar hit another bomb last night, and then Andy Pages. He's still hitting 8th, but the price at $4K. He's a good stick. So I might just ignore the 2 pinch hit lefties and just play Dodgers with the cheaper pitchers on this slate. So what's probably going to happen, DC, is every lineup that doesn't have Yamamoto is going to have a 5-man Dodgers in my 20, something like that. So yeah, love that. And then I didn't touch on Yamamoto. Same thoughts here. I've actually cored him the last couple rounds in the rotation because he's been low owned. People, hadn't bought in until maybe this start. So this will be the highest owned he's been, but I'm fine with it. I'm going to have at least 50% here. He's got a 30% strikeout rate, slate low, 2.73 FIP, 2.83 Sierra. That backs up his ERA that's under 3. Miami hasn't hit at all. Back 5 in most advanced metrics. He's gone 6 innings in each of his last 3 starts, so the duration is there. I know someone in the chat said that their concern was that they haven't let him go past 6 innings. I mean, they've been beating the shit out of teams, and he's just kind of been done after 6. So they haven't really had to push him at all, and he's done just fine. So he's the top arm on this slate. I'm gonna have a ton of them, and yeah, I think if you're not playing him and you like the cheaper pitchers, I think the Dodgers 5-man with the expensive bats is an awesome way to go on this slate.
Yeah, all good points there. I would add, don't be afraid to play Ohtani just as a straight up one-off. I know kind of, as DFS has gotten more projection centric and kind of people trying to play similar ways, everybody's trying to get a 5-3 stack in there. I get it, right? That is kind of the best way to play in a vacuum. But when you have a player like Ohtani who's performing the way he is right now, like, you don't got to play anybody around him. If he hits 2 home runs, right, you're going to need him. And he's just absolutely nuking right now. So don't be afraid to just, if you're hand building, plug in Ohtani as the first player in, and then figure out where you want to go from there. I think is certainly a reasonable approach given his level of production. And it seems like he's breaking the slate like 3 or 4 times a week right now, which is pretty absurd when you consider that he's only owned, 15 to 20% on average, something like that. So yeah, that's Shohei Ohtani. Get him in your lineups, and you will be pretty happy you did, I think, most nights. All right, that's all 8 games. Let's get to stacks, pitchers, home run calls, and play of the day. Steve, you should know the drill by now, so you should be ready. We'll let you go first. I usually steal these stacks, grab the best ones for myself, but we'll start with you on this one. Your favorite overall stack and your favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, going to the game, I got to go with the Cubs here in the nice weather. The sun's back out. Like I said, lots of these Cubs guys, their home road splits are crazy. They've just been hitting really well at home. Specifically, Horner, Talkman, and Swanson have been just dog shit on the road, but awesome at home. Like I said earlier, they have the cheap catcher. Pico Armstrong, I don't really love, but if you need to play him, he's going to be more of a glove-first guy, at least for now. So I'll go with Cubs as my favorite stack. My favorite contrarian stack, I'll go back to Colorado here. I don't stack the Rockies much. It's a context of the slate play. I think Harrison's going to end up being 30 to 35% owned here, which, I'm trying to remember the last time we saw a pitcher that wasn't like Luis Castillo or better be that owned in Coors. So I just think it's kind of a unique spot against a guy who's really, really struggled on the road. If it weren't for this wind, I would be even more in on them. But yeah, like the current way that the lineup looks, I think is fine here. So I'll go with the Rockies as my favorite contrarian stack.
Love it. I'm very much in the Cubs, but I'll go a different direction. Favorite overall stack, I'm going to go with the Royals. Power and speed against Camporeale. Really, really good hitting conditions in Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. So I'll go with the Royals as my favorite overall stack. And they're not cheap, but I do think they still qualify as a contrarian stack in the New York Yankees against Mr. Justin Verlander. Got a couple not cheap, but cheaper bats. Verdugo, Rizzo hitting 4th and 6th. That can help you fit that one in with some decent pitching as well. Most important pitcher on the slate. it's a tie for me between Yamamoto and Ober. 5 lineups on DraftKings tonight, and I might just play the combination of those two on all 5 and vary up my hitters, because I do think those 2 guys, at least from where I'm sitting, Steve, are the 2 best pitcher plays by a decent margin on this slate. So Yamamoto and Ober for me. What about you? Your most important pitcher or pitchers on the slate?
Yeah, I normally have a larger pitcher pool than I do tonight. I don't have that much tonight. I'll probably go, since you took those 2, I'll go with Seth Lugo, just because I think I'm going to have those Ober Lugo combinations with the Dodgers 5-mans is going to be my route when I need to pay up for multiple 6K bats on this slate.
All right, let's go to a home run call. We'll go to you first, Steve, your home run call of the day.
Got to go with the guy making his return to the lineup from my favorite stack here, Cody Bellinger, back from the IL. He was red hot before he got hurt. I believe he was only out the minimum 10 days. I was there on Saturday. He was out there warming up, looking good. So kind of seemed like a precautionary IL for him. He didn't even go out on an assignment. So I think he's good to go here. I'll go with Cody Bellinger.
All right, love it. I will go with first baseman, Mr. Anthony Rizzo, been heating up for the Yankees. Like I said, I do like the Yankees against Verlander and this Astros bullpen. And Rizzo's looked good recently. Obviously has that short porch in right field as well. So Anthony Rizzo as my home run call. Overall play of the day, I've listed him several times over the last couple of weeks, but I will stick with my man, Mr. Shohei Ohtani. Won't be his own as he should be. Maybe cheating, taking the best player in baseball, but here we are. If you want your 30 fantasy points, roster the GOAT, Mr. Shohei. What about you, Steve, your overall play of the day?
I'm going to go with a different style of overall play. I'm going to go with back to what I talked about with the Giants. I'm going to go with Wilmer Flores over Lamont Wade as the play of the day. I think Wade will be in single entry 30 to 40%, and people will be ignoring Flores because they're both only first base eligible. So I'll go Wilmer Flores hitting 5th at 4,600 as my play of the day tonight.
All right, Wilmer Flores it is. That'll do it for this show. Thanks for watching. As always, hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. This show will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Good luck to you all. We do appreciate you watching. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of those RPS logos up atop the leaderboards once again. We'll see you tomorrow. For Steve Boynton, I'm Draft G. We're out of here.